Hello, watch lovers. You know it's your boy Tevin, and welcome to another episode of the FUT's Watch Club, where we do watch reviews, watch breakdowns, and all that good stuff. Today we'll be looking into a classic. Today we'll be looking into one of the most popular watches around, and this watch is the Patek Philippe Nautilus. However, before we get into the video, I'd just like to remind you guys to please like, share, and subscribe to the channel, as this gives us motivation to produce a lot more content to you guys and provide more value. However, we are not wasting any time today. So the Patek Philippe Nautilus, which we will be calling the Nautilus today, this watch was first introduced in 1976, and then, as we know, since then this watch has become one of the most prestigious brands in the watch history. So today I'll just give you guys a rundown of the history of the watch and other details. So the Nautilus was first introduced in 1976, and this watch was not the first of its kind, and this watch is known as a luxury sports watch in steel. So this watch is a luxury sports watch in steel. The first luxury sports watch in steel was the Piget Royal Oak, which came 4 years earlier in 1972. However, the Nautilus debuted at a higher price point, and this added more prestige to the Nautilus first model. So the Nautilus tagline was one of the world's costliest watches made of steel. So because it was higher than the Pigate's Royal Oak, this tagline, one of the world's costliest watch made in steel, fit the Nautilus perfectly. So some other few details. So the Nautilus has a distinctive shape, which also created a buzz around the watch. The bezel of the watch is neither round or rectangular, but the bezel of the watch is what is known as octagonal, similar to the previous watch we did on this video, which was the G-Shock GMB. So back to the Nautilus. The Nautilus has an octagonal bezel, and also the octagonal shape of the bezel is curved outwards. Then the watch has a diameter of 42 millimeters. So back in the days, the Nautilus was definitely more modern than the Royal Oak at the time, as it was 3 millimeters larger. Also, the designer of the Royal Oak, the designer of the Piquet Royal Oak, which was Gerald Genta, he actually got a few sketch details and a few other details for the Nautilus to Patek Philippe. So the designer of the Royal Oak actually gave the sketch for the Nautilus to Patek Philippe in 1974. So that was 2 years before the release of the Nautilus. The unusual shape of the Nautilus, the unusual case shape of the Nautilus from Patek Philippe, this was inspired by the porthole of a ship that the designer was revealing at the time. So the rounded hexagonal bezel, and then what is called the ears on the outside of the case, which for the hinge on one side of the watch and the closure on the other side of the watch. These features, the octagonal bezel and the ear, was inspired by the porthole of a ship. Also, other features that came from the ship inspiration was that the watch has the embossed horizontal grooves on the dial, and then this also integrated metal brackets that was added to the watch, and this adds to the watch character and made it a very, very easy watch to identify and recognize in the watch industry as a standalone watch that was definitely unique at the time. Alright guys, now secondly, let's look into a few of the most distinctive features and the most characterizing features of the Patek Philippe Nautilus. So the Nautilus names come from a submarine that was featured in Jules Verne's classic novel The Portholes on Captain Nemo's submarine, and this was often depicted as an oval shape. So this is where the shape comparison came from that we spoke about earlier. The Nautilus likeness, as we said, is similar to that of the porthole of the ship, and this is not only in a visual sense, so there's other characteristics why it was compared to the porthole. So like the porthole, the sides of the watch serve to attach the bezel to the case, so there's only one opening on the watch in addition to the crown. Also, the movement and dial of the watch are both taken out of the case from the front section. So this construction of the watch was necessary to achieve, I should say, the watch water resistance. And the watch water resistance at the time was a water resistance of 120 meters. Also, secondly, the Nautilus name emphasizes its feature. So the Nautilus is shown to be worn on two very different risks. These risks depend on one in a diving suit and the other in a formal evening wear. So the Nautilus can span between a diving suit purpose and a formal wear purpose. Very versatile. So the first ever Nautilus, which was known as reference 3700, this Nautilus was powered by what is called a thin self-winding movement 28255, and this movement was developed way back in 1967 by the Vacheron Constantin designers. So Patek Philippe and also Audemars Piguet the movement actually was created by the Vacheron Constantin developers, and this movement 28255 was first used in the Royal Oak that we spoke about earlier, and this was called Caliber 2121. Then thirdly, the demand for the Nautilus was rather it was not that high at first. It was very slow. Sales were very slow on this specific watch. However, this changed drastically in 1980 when Patek Philippe actually introduced the ladies version of the Nautilus, and this ladies version of the Nautilus actually included a quartz movement. And then after this, a year later, they introduced the mid-size men's version, which was known as reference 3800, which was 100 up from the previous reference 3700. And this version 3800 actually, instead of the 42 millimeter diameter, this one had a 37 millimeter diameter. Alright, after this in 1967, a new Nautilus model was offered, and this Nautilus model in 1996, I should say, this Nautilus model came with what is known as a Roman numeral design and smooth dials and a smooth dial. So the gold versions were added soon after in 1996 with this new model that came with the Roman numerals and a smooth dial. And then further developments were made to the Nautilus, such as smaller versions were released, and then collectors began referring to the original larger Nautilus, which was the 3700, as a jumbo size. So because of the preference moving to the small size of the Nautilus compared to the jumbo size that was originally released, production of the original Nautilus model 3700 was stopped in 1990. Alright guys, now let's look into a few other details of the Patek Philippe Nautilus. So after the production stop of the original Nautilus in 1990, as mentioned before, Patek Philippe actually released another version of the original 42mm size. This other version was called the 3710, which was an upgrade from the 3700. This version was released in 1998, 8 years after production was stopped on the original version. However, the difference is that this model had Roman numerals included, as well as a power reserve indicator. So these were the few improvements that made it different than the original version. Then after this, in 2005, another version called the reference 3712 was added to the Nautilus collection. Some features of this version 3712 include it had a power reserve and it had moon phase indicators. Then after this, in addition, the 3712 model also had a small pointer date display, and this pointer date display was arranged in an asymmetrical fashion. This model, however, was only updated a year later, and let's look into that newer model. So 1 year later, in 2006 now, Patek Philippe had the 30th anniversary celebration of the Nautilus collection. So the designers of the Nautilus updated the collection with what is known as a version with a rounder case shape, and it had a modified case design. So the case in this version no longer consisted of the combined base and mix section with a top from the previous versions, but this newer model in 2006 had a classic three-piece case structure. So I guess that the designers of Patek Philippe was getting with the modern changes and the modern improvements of the watch industry overall, so they decided to change the case structure. So with this modern manufacturing methods used by the designers, the change did not affect the Nautilus water resistance, and that water resistance still continued to be 120 meters. However, for every model change that was done, the ears that is attached to the bezel of the midsection was eventually rounded off, so it was eventually made obsolete. Each model, the ears that was attached to the bezel in the original version was eventually rounded off and removed. And then after this, in the 2006 model, the movement of the watch could be viewed through a transparent caseback. So the transparent caseback was added, and another feature of the 2006 model is that the bracelets were also refined and given a more modern look. So the improvements in 2006 is that we can clearly see that the designers of the Nautilus saw the movement of the watch industry, that more modern methods were being incorporated, and so they did not want to be left behind. They started to incorporate these modern methods in the Nautilus collection as well, which then led to the combination of this different version that was created in 2006. Alright guys, so now we're just gonna look at a few final details, a few interesting information, and then we'll wrap up for today. Thank you guys for staying with me so long. So again, back in the anniversary year, the 30th anniversary year of the Nautilus collection, 2006, the Patek Philippe also debuted the Nautilus chronograph, and this Nautilus chronograph had a new upgraded developed caliber, which is known as the 28520. So this is an upgrade from the 28255 that we seen earlier, and this new Nautilus chronograph had a reference number of 5980, and this 5980 Nautilus is actually currently available only in rose gold and in two-tone steel and rose gold. This reference number, Nautilus 5980 from the collection, was one of the first Nautilus ever to contain the chronograph movement with no additional functions. So if you take into consideration the rapid advancement date, combined minutes, hour counter, flyback function for the direct resetting of the running chronograph, these are not considered additional functions, as these functions that I mentioned above with the combined minutes and hour counter, the rapid date advance and flyback functions, these are included in the chronograph and are not considered additional functions. So after this, the Nautilus, another model of the Nautilus was released, and this model is known as the reference 5726, and this Nautilus model has even more features. So what are these more features that this reference number 5726 contains? So these features include the annual calendar has a date on it. The annual calendar has a date. Also, it has a days of the week and month display in a window aperture. The small 24-hour display is integrated in the moon phase indicator. The movement caliber of this reference number 5726 is known as the caliber 324 SQALU 24H305. So that's a very interesting caliber. Also, this caliber advances correctly for all the months, whether they have 30 days or 31 days. It doesn't matter. This caliber will advance correctly. After this, the Nautilus chronograph reference number 5980 with the caliber, as we mentioned above, 28-520, is also currently available in only rose gold and the two-tone steel combination. Finally, two limited edition models of the Patek Philippe Nautilus was introduced in 2016, and this is 10 years on, so they are celebrating the 40th year anniversary of the Nautilus collection. And these two editions have garnished a lot of attention, which you can find on most major sites that sells the Nautilus. So what are these two editions of the Nautilus that was released in 2016? So the first edition was a platinum version, which has the reference number 5711. This platinum version was limited to only 700 pieces, and this version was priced handsomely at over 113,000 United States dollars. So that is 113,000 United States dollars for this platinum version, reference number 5711. Also, the Nautilus chronograph came in another edition, and this is the white gold edition, and this edition has a larger 44mm case. This white gold edition is limited to 1,300 pieces, so that's 600 more than the platinum version, and this watch is priced a little bit lower. This white gold version is priced a little bit lower at 96,390 US dollars. So these versions have what is known as the baguette diamonds, and these baguette diamonds are used as the 1 hour markers on the watch, and the baguette diamond also are used as imprinted anniversary date on the dial. And these were seen as a very elegant touch, a very classy touch to the Nautilus. Yet, however, despite the high prices due to the addition of these expensive materials such as the diamond, even these very latest Nautilus models with these high prices, the platinum and the white gold editions, are highly sought of, and they were quickly sold out in 2016. So just because of the Nautilus name, the rich history of the collection, it seems that no matter the pricing or the addition of materials, the Nautilus will always be highly sought of and will be highly sold out, as it was in the 1990s, as the tradition continues up to this day. So thank you guys again for sticking out with me. We're at the end of another video. You know it's your boy Tevin. I just like to remind you guys to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Also be sure to check out other videos on the channel that provides really good information, the same as this one. So thank you guys again, and all the best.